Welcome to Leveraging Federal and State Contracting Certifications. Now, looking at how to find, prioritize, and convert more. And one of the things you have to look at is, leveraging. So looking at the time that it takes to get these certifications versus the value in money, focusing on profitable activities. So I love this quote, looking at how to leverage all of your resources. And if you leverage it correctly, it's going to have amazing results, but it's leveraging. And we're going to be talking about how to leverage that. Alicia, if you want to welcome everybody from Prince George's County.
Sure. So welcome everybody. In the real world, if we were in Innovation Station and maybe hosting this program live, we would be welcoming you in person. But since we're virtual, we'll just say hello virtually. Alicia Moran, Manager of Small Business Development. There are my contact details. I'm here to assist you if you're a Prince George's County based company or you're looking to do business in Prince George's County. You may want to reach out also to your local economic development agency if you're coming to us from another county. The pathways to procurement. This workshop is really designed we have a series of programs that we're doing with different partners. Today, we're partnering with Russell Teeter and the SBDC and the CEO Accelerator Program. So we have other programs upcoming. Just wanted to make sure that you know that you're in store for a great program with Russell. Thanks so much, Russell, for being our partner in this effort. And for everybody else who's on the panel, who we've been working with throughout COVID, I feel like, and bringing these programs into everybody's room live. So welcome, everybody.
So Eduardo, you want to welcome everybody from the standpoint of the governor?
Yes, sir. So from the governor, on behalf of the governor, of course, and the lieutenant governor, in our office, Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs. Of course, we want to welcome everyone to today's, which I think is a very important topic to concentrate on, which is leveraging federal and state contracting certifications, right? Often people just see the certifications as something you get, but you have to understand what leverage can you apply to that to make it work. So I want to welcome everyone this morning. Just a real quick thing, make sure you keep track of any of the responses with regards to COVID. So the change of restrictions, the lessening of restrictions, any new information that's out there so that you know how to continue to pivot, adapt to the recovery process. So just those two links are there so that you guys can take a look at what those changes might be moving forward. So with that, I welcome everyone, and we look forward to working with you guys later on.
Great. So looking at, these are the three questions that need to be answered to make money. One, who is spending money? Gathering all of the resources to look at who's spending money. So focusing here on with the government, but also in the private sector, but who's spending money? Of those people that are spending money, right? Don't forget that. What is their known problem? What is their known problem that you can solve better, faster, or cheaper than who's doing it now? And then how to best communicate with them their way. It's not about communicating to them your way. It's about communicating to them their way. These are really simple things. It's just really hard work. And that's balancing the time and money standpoint. So when people call me, I'll ask them how they're doing. And typical response of a small business owner is, I'm busy. And my question back is, are you profitably busy? You can be busy and not profitably busy. Now, looking at who's spending money, the government is spending money. But when it comes to government contracting, it's like this huge wall exists. So I'm kind of changing my analogy a little bit. It's that huge wall around the government. So how do you get through this wall? How do you get over it, around it? Doesn't say it here, but also it could be under it. Not encouraging to do anything illegal, obviously. So how do you get over this wall? One tool would be resources from, say, a Morgan Stanley. So we have with us Greg and Pete. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
So quickly talk about how to utilize some of the resources. If people connect with you, what are some of the resources and how to utilize it?
Thanks, Russ. And this is Pete Delacruz. We appreciate being with all of you this morning. To Russell's point, in our practice at Morgan Stanley, we work with a lot of business owners. And in addition to helping them with financial planning and their retirement planning strategies, we want to be able to provide more information to help break down that wall and get new business. And one of the things that we have access to is an industry report, and that's an industry report. It's based on your NAICS code, which is the North American Industry Classification System code, and it's an extensive report that provides very detailed information about your specific industry, the trends that are occurring, what some of the sort of other competition within the industry is doing, in addition to some forecasts. Right, so you get a sense of within my specific niche, what are some of the financial statistics that other companies have? What are the valuations, right? Because for many of us on this call, eventually there's a goal of potentially selling the business on the road, and what are some of the valuation metrics? So this industry report, very extensive. Almost 30 pages that provides very detailed information, and that's something that we want to be able to provide to those that are interested in that.
So when you're
in addition,
well, just pause on that. Just really emphasizing, this is just one example, and this is just a couple of pages of this report, but it's constantly updated. And people say selling to the government. You're selling to people. And people want to make sure that you understand the industry that you're in. If you don't understand it, if you don't know things about it, that doesn't give the contracting officer confidence in you. So now it may be that you know your industry, but following the money, it could be taking you into different NAICS codes. So how do you gather information about these new NAICS codes that you could be going into? Would be getting connecting with Greg and Pete to get a report like this.
Knowledge is power. And in addition to some of those industry resources, I know that there are other sites that our clients visit with as it relates, we were talking earlier about finding out where is money being spent. I know our clients use usaspending.gov is one resource where you can get a sense of where are those dollars going, as well as some independent third-party sites. COVIDmoneytracker.org is another one that we know that folks are using out there. So just having more of that knowledge, having more resources available to you, so that you can break through that wall. What Russell is showing right here is just an example of one of our our industry reports from Morgan Stanley's research side. So this is providing more information about the economic backdrop, as well as specific industries and trends that Morgan Stanley research.
So, so how to utilize a tool like this would be if Morgan Stanley is advising people to invest in a large contractor that's publicly held, that could be indication that now they're positioned to win more contracts. So it's utilizing the information that's out there to help guide you to finding these opportunities. Another thing I want to mention is one of the reasons that small businesses, government contractors are not fans of small businesses is because employees leave. So, Pete, Greg, if you could talk a little bit about ways that people can help retain those key employees.
Sure, I can. This is Greg. I can touch on that for a minute. In addition to what Pete had shared, we also have access to some broader macro data too, different reports. Like we run a quarterly report called The Signal at Morgan Stanley that does an overview of spending, budgets, what to expect in the government services and technology sector. So we have these broad-based reports too that you have access to. In addition to what Russell mentioned, the research on the prime contractors, et cetera. So when it comes to what's on the screen right now, and this also talks about the resources we have available, educating employees, retaining employees. There are a number of different strategies that you will ultimately want to evaluate and possibly pursue as you grow and look to sell your business. The golden handcuffs is a type of retirement plan that you can customize to retain key employees as you're looking to ultimately grow and sell. So what we would typically do with clients, we offer to anybody, is an overview and a review of your current strategy when it comes to retaining employees, trying to attract employees. Who are your key employees? Where are you going to be over the next 5 years? And what's ultimately potentially here the exit strategy? And then what types of plans should you consider or evaluate to just continue to strengthen your position, your company, your business as you grow and ultimately sell it? So we have access to a lot here. We're available at any point in time. Our emails are here and our contact information. So please reach out and let us know how we can help.
Okay, so thank you. So gathering information. Now, I want to emphasize, there's this wall. Think of government contracting as a wall. And how can you climb this wall? So building a ladder, and we're going to be talking about certifications as like the different rungs on a ladder. But with all of this, we're going to be talking about opportunities. I want to take a pause, and I'm going to stop sharing and let Nicole share of a tool to help organize and to build this pipeline. So I want to take a pause for that. So Nicole, while you're pulling up yours. So in the olden days, when I was in sales or business development, I literally used index cards. I literally defined what an A was on an index card. What was the highest profitable? Then I had my Bs. I would label Bs, and I would have Cs, which are ones I don't want to connect with, and then I would have D. So I would rank them A, B, C, D, and then I would be within each shoebox. I would rank those cards because I would put all my opportunities in different shoeboxes, and then sub-rank them hot, warm, or cold. So I can talk more later individually about helping you build that, but I use shoeboxes, okay? Before people jump, I have a lot of clients that jump right to the not endorsing anything like a salesforce.com. But in the middle, somewhere between going the shoebox method and getting a Cadillac of vehicles like a salesforce.com, there's something in the middle, and I want Nicole to talk about a pipeline opportunity management system that she created in Excel. So Nicole?
Thank you, Russ. Yeah, so this is just a little bit more mature than index cards and shoeboxes, and a little less robust than some of the online tools, but it costs nothing. So, so Russ, when you had your index cards, I understand that you had some rating system that gave you an indication of how desirable or how successful pursuing that opportunity would be. But I'm assuming you also had some information on that index card about the customer, about maybe the competition, or details about the contract itself.
So that was, so the answer to your question is yes. And then sometimes more of the information that I had would put them from an A or B, or if they were in the hot, warm, or cold category, because I would have 2 labelings on every card.
Gotcha.
A,
So
B, or C, or if they, or D. And D was, it could be that I had no contact information on them. And then within each shoebox, I would rank hot, which could be I had a lot of information, I knew somebody. Warm, I had some information, but I needed to develop more. Or cold, as I had very little.
gotcha. Perfect. So this Excel spreadsheet is essentially very similar to that system. Each row would represent a single opportunity that we are targeting, and each cell gives us an opportunity to collect information, especially because, as you mentioned, as you collect information, it sometimes changes your approach to that opportunity. So this spreadsheet gives us the information that we should be looking for to make some initial go, no go decisions about the opportunity, as well as information that we can build up over time as we learn about the opportunity, about the customer, that might change that rating that we give the opportunity. So this, the purpose of this also is to keep track of the opportunities that we are pursuing. So a lot of times we'll identify an opportunity, and if we don't have some system for keeping track of it, we might never take any further actions about that on that opportunity. And then by the time the RFP comes out, it could come out, you know, outside of our favor, and or we are so unprepared that we don't even bid on it. So this helps us keep track of all the opportunities that we're pursuing. And then the other thing it does is it helps us visualize in another tab on the actual spreadsheet itself. We can actually visualize what's going on inside of that pipeline. So if we're looking at a very full pipeline, we can project our revenue against that pipeline, which is very helpful, as we may have mentioned before. Building a pipeline that's 9 times your revenue goal is a solid goal in the federal space, especially to ensure that you're able to meet those revenue goals that you've established for your company. So this pipeline can actually help you visualize where you are on building that pipeline 9 times your revenue goal. We can also visualize other elements of the pipeline. So this other pieces of information that you'll find in this pipeline are going to be the status, which allows us to move an opportunity through a general sales process, from identifying the opportunity to qualifying it, to preparing for the proposal, submitting the proposal, and receiving the result of that proposal. Over time, the more data that we have in this pipeline, we can start to learn a little bit more about our organization. You know, what is our win rate? How successful are we at winning proposals? And then we can start to dig into, well, what is it about our proposal response that is successful or not successful? And here's how we can start to build our capability in responding to government solicitations. You can also visualize the RFP release date. And a lot of companies, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in my session, but a lot of companies have goals besides just revenue. Some companies that are entering the federal space, for example, want to subcontract in order to get to know the environment, build their networks, get to know their customers, and then eventually they'll have a goal of receiving their first prime contract. And so those sorts of goals can also be visualized within this pipeline as we're building out opportunities that maybe we're focusing on a prime or a subcontracting strategy, for example.
So I have, you know, people to buy well, let's not even use the word the Cadillac. They buy the race car, and they don't know how to drive it. So if you use an Excel spreadsheet like this, you need to think about it just like with the index card, the shoebox. So this would be a little bit more robust. I know this is a loaded question, Nicole, but I'm going to word this as a question. Is, for example, what you're showing here, your Excel spreadsheet is all set up to do things like this, correct?
Correct. Yes, this is something that I do offer as a download. You just need to reach out to me to get it. I'll send you this template, and it includes this sheet where you input your opportunity data, and it includes the dashboard that pulls from your opportunity data and creates this visualization for you.
So I just want to emphasize again that someone can get this Excel spreadsheet all formula created at no cost to them by just emailing you and asking for it.
Yep, that's
Okay.
it.
So just to review, looking at opportunities, if you try to go after everything, you're going to go after nothing. You need to build that pipeline, and we're going to be talking about that, the 9X, your goal. So if your goal in federal contracting, let's pick a number, is 100,000, then you need to have a pipeline of opportunities in either shoeboxes or Excel spreadsheet like this of 9 times that. So if your goal is $1 million, then you need to have $9 million of identified opportunity, because you're not going to convert all of them. So that's why you need to have that 9X. So again, I would rank things A, B, C, D. A's are the ones that are the most profitable. B's are less than your A's. The C's are those that you do not want to contact. And the D's are the ones that are just dead. You don't have any contact information or whatever. Then within your A's and B's, you wanted to subrank hot. And I would use a number 1 for hot because it was easier to put a number 1 than hot. Warm was a 2. And then cold, where I have to do a lot of relationship building when we talking about that, would be cold would be a 3. So it actually have 3 subcategories in A's, 3 subcategories in B's. I would have just C's and then D's. So I knew who to contact first and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense. So Nicole, if you can stop sharing. Okay, so I'm going to go back to sharing. So can everybody see Nicole, can you see my presentation now?
Yep, I see it.
Okay. So looking at finding opportunities, building that ladder. So be thinking of, and I intentionally had it with matches because those could burn up and you need to replace those rungs on the ladder. So looking at building your pipeline with the whole goal of getting over this wall. So looking at specifically diving into state contracting first. So Eduardo, if you want to briefly mention about the tools on the state side.
Yeah, so again, early on I mentioned the procurement forecast, but I didn't get into it. And I did mention Emma. I'm going to talk specifically about the procurement forecast. Okay, this is basically it's a form that's going to give people a chance to look at potential opportunities that the state of Maryland agencies are looking to pursue for the fiscal year, which is between July and June. That's our fiscal year timeframe. Okay, so the forecast, if you go to our website, gomd.smallbiz.maryland.gov, you'll find it there at the top. If you click on that, and you can go to the next slide on there. So you're going to get a procurement forecast portal, right? And you can do a search on here. And I want to highlight a couple of things. There's about 6 different ways that you can search from your keyword, more specific to your product or services, to then agencies and contract value. You can even go by quarters. Now, all of that are tools that can help you with that aspect of prioritize and find opportunities, right? So you can sort of narrow your search to the things that are specific to what you do. The other thing that's very important in here is when you first do a search, keyword or otherwise, you just get a snapshot view of what that opportunity is. The more important thing you have to do with the forecast is you want to export to Excel. When you do that, that's going to give you a spreadsheet view. And this is where you really get to see some information. So if you're an MBE as an example, and you're interested as a prime or what have you, the spreadsheet is going to give you various information, not just the agency. It'll tell you who the incumbent is, who currently has that contract. You can see if there were MBE goals attached to that contract. So if you know that that's coming due, the perfect opportunity to identify either who your competition might be, if you're going to be approaching this as a prime. If you're a subcontractor, gives you an indication of who had it last, and maybe gives you who you can look for when the new posting comes out, if they're going to be part of the prime group of businesses. So now you have someone that you can sort of attach yourself to and find out more information about them. It tells you location, where in the state are these opportunities looking to take place. It even tells you the time frame, what quarter is these things going to take place, even the term of contract. So you'll know if it's a 3 to 4 year, 1 to 2, 5 years or more. Very good information that's going to help you with not just identifying whether they have MBE goals, who the primes could be that you can compete against, or what primes are you going to approach if you're a subcontractor. And then more importantly, in a forecast, you also get who that buyer is and their contact information. Now, what you want to do with this info is once you know this agency and you get a sense for the timeline and all this information, use EMMA, again, EMMA.maryland.gov. And when you go there during the time frame when they're posting these things anew, pay attention to any pre-bid conference meetings, because that's where these incumbents might be and other competitors. So that's where you're going to be able to identify your competition or primes you want to work with if you're a subcontractor, and finding these opportunities. So it's a great way of using the forecast as one way of looking ahead. And then you combine that with EMMA when the postings are actually out, so that you can kind of help yourself to prioritize these opportunities as you find them, and then leverage whether there are, certifications are involved in this space, right? So when you go to EMMA, I'm going to add one last thing here. Do an advanced search. The advanced search will allow you to highlight opportunities that have MBE goals attached to them, or if they're small business reserve, which is another certification based on the size of your business in the state of Maryland. And so that can help you focus in on opportunities that deal with those kinds of certifications. So if you have a small business reserve certification or an MBE, here's another way of understanding how you can maybe leverage the fact that you have those certifications and marry it to opportunities that are available.
So just in this example, so Eduardo talked about these forecast and then EMMA, and just alone exporting these and looking at them, people go, wow, there's a lot. And again, it's prioritizing these opportunities. If you try to go after all of them, you're going to go after none of them. You got to build that pipeline that you're going to be focusing on, and making sure that your pipeline is profitable. So diving into that specifically the MBE on the state side, we have Kristen. You with us, Kristen?
I'm coming. Come on. Okay, I'm here. So yeah, I wanted to go deep dive a little bit more into the MBE program. One of the things that Russell always speaks about is finding the money and figuring out who's spending the money. So one of the resources that you can use for that is the annual report that the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs puts out. And that can be found online. There is a link on the slide. So when you receive these slides from Russell, you'll be able to click on that link at the bottom and take you right to the fiscal year 2020 report. And an example of the information that you can get is the MBE payment and award information. And you can see that there is money being spent through this MBE program, the Minority Business Enterprise Program, at the tune of $971 million. That's a lot of money going around. And in fiscal year 2020, the number of MBEs that received these payouts was $1,786. So you can see there are opportunities within the program. Russell, next. This is a little bit smaller, but when you get the slides, you'll be able to see this is a breakdown of the categories that money is being spent in through the MBE program. So kind of take a look and see where you are, where you fit into this, and really how much, the pot that you have the ability to pursue. And again, this is available in that MBE report, or that it's the annual report from the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, a very good resource to really get an understanding of the Minority Business Enterprise Program and the other two programs, the Small Business Reserve and the Veteran-Owned Small Business Enterprise Programs. Next.
So this is, looking at where they're spending money. And again, it may be that you have to pivot a little bit into a slightly different industry, where this is where you can get the industry reports to help educate you on that industry.
Yeah, and we're going to go through now a couple of facts about the program. And these are some things that maybe there are some misconceptions around or misunderstandings. So let's talk about the actual program. This program is designed to create opportunities for certified businesses on state contracts. It is based on a percentage. So a percentage of the contract is basically reserved for MBE participation. It is not a full contract set aside. So we're not reserving contracts just for MBEs to bid on. It's a goal placed on a contract through the program. So next. So speaking of the goals that are placed are on a contract by contract basis. So basically every contract that goes through what is called a procurement review group process, and the agency determines whether an MBE goal is appropriate and what that goal should be based on the size, the scope of the contract, and the number of MBEs available to work on the contract. And we'll get into that number of MBEs and where to find those in just a minute. A lot of folks hear this 29% number. There's an MBE goal of 29%, and that's true, but that is an annual goal that is 29% of the total contracting dollars for each agency. So the individual goals on each contract may not be 29%. You may see contracts with no goal. You may see contracts with higher goals. So it all depends on the contract. So you have to make sure when you're looking at the solicitation, you're identifying that percentage on that specific solicitation. Next.
So this is where it could be, and this is long-term pipeline building, is that building a relationship and showing the powers that be that you can do it as an MBE to have those things with MBE goals. It may not be now, but it could be something of the future.
Mm-hmm. So talking a little more about contracting opportunities. It's very important to understand that within the MBE program, the Minority Business Enterprise Program, it is up to the prime contractor to select the MBE subcontractors they plan to use. The state does not select MBE subcontractors nor any subcontractor for a prime. It is always up to the prime contractor to select the MBE subcontractors they wish to use on a contract and to manage that MBE subcontractor on that contract. So that's very important to understand when you're looking for opportunities, that if, as an MBE, if you're looking to be a subcontractor, yes, you want to look at the contracts that the state is putting out, but you don't necessarily want to try to make connections with state buyers. You need to make connections with prime contractors.
So this is where attending pre-bid workshops on the larger things, you could be meeting the primes and getting into their proposal before they submit it. It's going to be easier to utilize you to increase your win ratio if you're in a prime contractor's proposal than after the fact. Not to say.
And actually, that's a very good point, Russell. In order for MBE, in order for a prime contractor to submit their bid, they have to identify the MBEs prior to submitting that bid. So when they're just submitting to the state, they tell the state, this is the MBE contractor, subcontractor we want to use. This is the percentage of the contract they're going to fulfill, and this is what they're going to do on that contract. So these prime contractors need to know who these MBE subcontractors are before they submit their bid. And another important point to remember is that you must be certified through the Maryland Department of Transportation Office of Minority Business Enterprise to qualify as a minority-owned business for the MBE program. There are a lot of other certifications out there. However, specifically for the state's Minority Business Enterprise Program, you must be certified through the Maryland Department of Transportation. And it's also important to remember that your certification is valid for 1 year, which means every year on the anniversary of your certification, you have to submit what's called a no change affidavit, certifying that that your information has not changed, indicating that you are still qualified to remain in the program. If you fail to do this, you will be removed from the directory of certified firms, meaning you are no longer certified to fulfill any MBE requirements on a contract. So very, very, very important. The Maryland Department of Transportation will reach out to you when this happens, when this comes up, requesting you to fill out your information so that you get the opportunity to do so in a timely manner.
So wanting to emphasize that it is the Maryland Department of Transportation that manages this program and the certification process. So I have people that say, well, I'm in IT, I don't want a transportation contract, so I shouldn't go there. In the wisdom of the state legislature, they have put this program within the Department of Transportation. So regardless of what type of contracts you want, it's through the Department of Transportation. There's a long history behind that. And I want to emphasize it's 1 year. So Kristen was very nice of saying that they will contact you when your time is up for renewal, but put it into your calendar, your tickler file. Don't rely on the government to notify you. Put it in your tickler file. We intentionally did not spend time on the actual certification form. Department of Transportation does a great job of educating on that. If you have any questions, we're here for you. But we intentionally did not, because you are either qualified or you're not, and they just want to document it. I do want to mention that Maryland has one of the best state programs in the country to eliminate fraud. So as you're filling it out, the state of Maryland wants to make sure, I'm going to say this point blank, that no white males are getting this certification.
Which brings me to my next slide. So thank you for that transition. So for eligibility, a few things that people may not realize is that Maryland does not have a separate women-owned business certification. Women fall under the Minority Business Enterprise certification. So as a female, you are able to apply for this program through the Maryland Department of Transportation and get certified under the MBE program. Another thing to point out, and as Russell had stated, that the state of Maryland is very good about controlling this program and eliminating any type of fraud that may occur. So one of the things that this program requires is that not only does the minority owner have the majority ownership of the firm, but they also have to demonstrate that they control the work. And I point this out because a lot of folks know that, you know, companies out there will give ownership to a certain person just to demonstrate minority ownership, but that person may have no experience in that field of work. So what this program does is it looks to make sure that not only do you legally have the ability to control the company because you are the at least 51% owner, but you also have experience in that type of work. So that's one of the things that we in the state of Maryland do to ensure that that this program really is working how it was intended to. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that it doesn't have to be a sole minority owner. It can be a multiple minority owners too. So you can have 2, 3 owners that fall into the minority status, and they can collectively own a company to have majority ownership.
So the process is not difficult. It's not easy. And this is where you need to balance that time and money standpoint. The time that it takes to get all the documents together versus the money that you're going to make. You need to balance that to make sure that it's going to help you. Getting the MBE certification is not going to hurt you, but you have to decide if it's going to help you. And I just want to re-emphasize that Maryland is trying to eliminate fraud, which is a white male going for the certification. So they're going to be looking for that. So embrace it. If you have nothing to hide, embrace the fact that they're trying to eliminate fraudulent companies. If you're trying to commit fraud, don't, because you're not going to be successful. And you have the penalties of trying to commit fraud. And again, it's about white men trying to keep white men out of the program.
So kind of transitioning to another subject, and something we spoke about is prime contracting. A lot of minority firms wish to obtain contracts as a prime contractor, and that is fantastic, because I cannot tell you how much the state encourages minority business enterprises to pursue contracts as the prime contractor. One of the benefits of doing so is not only getting the prime contract, but as the law is written now, a certified minority business enterprise can satisfy up to 50% of a MBE goal on a contract now. So no longer do you have to subcontract out 100% of that goal. You can now satisfy up to 50% of that goal. However, keeping in mind at least 50% of the goal must still be satisfied by subcontracting. So what this is doing is it's allowing the MBE subcontractor some benefit of being an MBE, but also still encouraging prime contractors to spread the wealth, so to say, by assisting other MBE contractors in getting to that level so that they can build their companies.
So this is by the legislature. So I have a lot of MBE firms that say, well, I'm MBE. Why do I have to subcontract out to MBEs? Because I'm MBE. Can I do it all? And don't yell at the Christians of the world. because Kristen, you're not a elected official, right?
No,
Not yet, at least. So this is not what, this is what the state legislature has created in their wisdom.
Yes. All right, so now moving on to the subcontractors. So as a prime contractor, I'd mentioned that it is your responsibility to identify MBE subcontractors to fulfill a goal. I also mentioned that these subcontractors must be certified through the Maryland Department of Transportation. The great news with all of this is the Maryland Department of Transportation manages the official directory of certified firms, which is a public database that anybody can access to search for certified minority business enterprises. The database is public, like I had mentioned, and it's searchable. So there's a lot of different criteria you can use to search for these companies. So as a subcontractor, what this means for you is that you want to make sure your company is in this firm if you qualify for the program, so that the prime contractors can find you.
So look, find yourself in this. Make sure the information is correct. The state is really good at trying to make sure it's accurate, but one letter wrong in an email means you don't get things. So double check on a regular basis your listing. And I just want, thinking out of the box. So this is me speaking, no reflection of anybody else. It could be because this goal put on by the legislature is to force teaming relationships. So it could, thinking out of the box, it could be that you're partnering with another MBE. One time you go after the prime and you subcontract to them. Another time they're the prime and they subcontract to you. It's building your pipeline. Think out of the box of how to build and utilize that ladder to get over the wall.
Mm-hmm. All right. So another thing to think about when a prime contractor is selecting minority business enterprise subcontractors is not only are they in the database of certified firms, but they also must be certified with in the NAICS code, the North American Industry Classification System code, that they will be performing work in. So what this means is when you obtain your MBE certification, you apply for specific NAICS codes to demonstrate the industries that you perform work in. And when a prime contractor selects the subcontractors, they must select subcontractors that are certified in that NAICS code for the work they're performing. So for example, if you are an accounting firm and you are certified with an accounting NAICS code, however, a company wants to hire you to perform, let's say they want to hire you to perform construction management for some reason because you have somebody in your company that does that, but you don't have that certification, that code. That does not qualify to satisfy a minority business enterprise goal. So it's very important when you are a prime contractor, you are selecting the appropriate subcontractors so that you don't have any issues with your bid. So just keep that in mind. The other thing that's very important is that the MBE subcontractors satisfying goals on a contract must perform a commercially useful function on that contract. So what that means is you can't just hire a contractor to do work for your company and try to apply it to a contract. And it also has to be a commercially useful function, which means it has to be applicable to that contract. That's not to say that you couldn't hire a company to do specifically bookkeeping or accounting on that specific contract, but it has to be for that contract. So
you want to be doing the research to find out where they're spending money, looking at the NAICS codes, and it could be making some adjustments, but making sure that you understand that NAICS code. And NAICS codes are better than SIC codes. And I'm dating myself here, remembering SIC codes. So NAICS codes replaced SIC codes. So NAICS codes are better, but there's still a lot missing in that. So you could be in a NAICS code, the opportunities could be in a NAICS code, and you're kind of looking at, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it may not, but you got to emphasize the key thing of following those spending money and placing yourself, maybe pivoting a little bit to make sure that they line up.
Yeah, and the other thing when you're looking at the NAICS codes that the contractors are certified in is that there are often parentheticals that sometimes limit the codes to specific types of work under that industry. So don't only focus on the numbers, make sure you're reading the description that they have been certified under as well. That way you don't find yourself in a position of trying to use a subcontractor that actually isn't qualified, because what would happen there is that you may encounter issues with that bid because technically at that point you're no longer meeting that MBE goal. So directory of certified firms, Russell had already mentioned this. Making sure your info.
You get it twice. This is very important.
Yes, and I refrained from saying it earlier, but you said it, so now I'll say it again. It is so incredibly important to make sure that your information is accurate in the directory. If a prime contractor or some other organization trying to hire minority business enterprise contractors can't contact you, you're not going to get the work. So that means visiting the directory, looking up your company, making sure the contact information is accurate, and doing so periodically, because what we're finding sometimes is that the person that was initially listed as a contact, maybe like you changed email servers and your email address is no longer accurate, or maybe your phone number changed. And you don't think, there's so many different directories I'm sure you're listed in, you don't think to change your information in all of them. But I really want to stress the importance of putting this one on one of your priority lists, because this is one of those steps in that ladder to help you get contracts. And if people can't find you to hire you, then that ladder is useless.
So on the MBE side, again, we didn't go into the specifics of the application because it's pretty straightforward. MDOT, and I want to emphasize again that even if you're in, say, IT and you have nothing to do with transportation, MDOT still does the certification. So you got to go to that. They do the process. They're making sure that there is no fraud. So embrace that. Show them that there are no white men involved in your business so that you can obtain that certification. Anything else you wanted to add, Kristen?
No, I did want to put it back to Eduardo just to make sure that he didn't have anything to add, because his organization, the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, really is the organization that oversees this program. So if he had anything to add that I missed, I wanted to make sure he had.
I think you were very thorough in the program in and of itself. Again, we oversee the compliance to the program while MDOT oversees that certification process and things like that. So if anybody has questions about the certification itself and the process of getting it, then you go to MDOT's Office of Minority Business Enterprise. Obviously, we can always help or assist if you're having trouble. But then when it comes to the compliance to the program, then that's where you can reach out to us if you're having some issues. So we do some advocacy, of course, if there are issues between primes and agencies or subcontractors and primes. We do handle those kind of advocacy. So if you're having some issues in that space, you can reach out to us and we'll do our best to sort of I don't want to say intervene, but at least assist in resolving any issues that may pop up in that. Other than that, I mean, Kristen, you know your stuff, so you did an excellent job.
All right, Tania, with PTAC, do you have any thoughts on the MBC certification or any thoughts that you want to share on the state contracting side before we move into local government?
Yeah, I just want to specify what Kristen said that I really think is so important. I do encourage the clients that qualify to get their MBE certification. I also make it a very good point that they attend the application workshop. I think that's very, very clear because they had so many questions about how the certification is going to benefit them. So for me, the application workshop has been a tremendous help, especially if they are new to the whole procurement process.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I just also want to stress how when I stress that it is so important that if they are going after the MBE program, that they do have experience in the particular contracting or services that they offer. Not that they can run the company, which I hear all the time, but don't necessarily have the experience or past performance of conducting the work or the services that are being offered. And I also distress to them that, you know, if this is the case and they're awarded a contract, that they could be terminated for default. So once they understand the difference between termination for convenience versus termination from default, going through the application process, attending the workshop, that they're much more successful and they don't get as frustrated.
So the, I said before, I'm going to say again, is the MBE certification will never hurt you. But going through the process, you got to make sure that it is going to help you because you need to focus on the most profitable activities that you can do and looking at the MBE as one. Now, we're going to go back a little bit to the state, but looking at local government. So in Maryland, there are lots of counties and municipalities within the county. So just one example is Prince George's County, which has a supplier development and diversity division. So Alicia, if you want to talk about very briefly about the opportunities within Prince George's County.
Sure. And Russell, if you can switch to the next slide. So just so you know, Prince George's County on our economic development webpage, we have links to different procurement opportunities. So it's important for you to know that in any county, there may be different agencies that you can go to have procurement and bid opportunities. In Prince George's County, it is our Office of Central Services, and the Office of Central Services and the Supplier Development and Diversity page that Russell was just showing you actually does show that is where vendors should register with our Supplier Development and Diversity as a vendor. You must do that in order to be able to be eligible for contracts. If you are a local business entity, you will be able to secure some advantages in the procurement process by being a local business entity. Here you can also see that we have provided links to, you know, the community colleges. So just remember this in each county, that there are different procurement portals. You know, for public education, all the school systems have different procurement opportunities as well. So you want to make sure that you realize that just coming to our Office of Central Services on the page here in the screenshot, you can see when you go to this page, and I'll type this into the chat, the actual link. But when you go here, you can see procurement opportunities. You can see the procurement forecast. You can see that they're going to be launching a green book. And you can see where you can register and get certified as well within the county portal. And I'll just keep it quick there and I'll send my time over to the next speaker.
Okay, so when you're looking at local government, so looking at not only counties, but some counties have municipalities within those counties. So you need to be also looking at those, and it's building your pipeline. Now, there's some counties that have supplier diversity goals, like the state does. Some counties and municipalities do not have goals. Okay, so you got to be looking at that, helping build with your pipeline. There's some counties that take the MBE certification, like Prince George's County. They take the state's MBE certification. There are other municipalities, like Baltimore City, that has their own process of certification. So just because you're certified in Baltimore City does not mean that you're certified at the state level. Just because you're certified at the state level doesn't mean you're certified in Baltimore City. So all these things you need to be looking at, again, focusing on the profitable opportunities, building your pipeline of 9X and using the certifications as like rungs on a ladder. And when one burns out, you create a new one. Now, the difference between the federal and the state of Maryland, right? There's a lot of different confusions of understanding the federal versus the state. So I'm going to bring Kristen back and Nicole. You're with us, Nicole? You're muted.
I'm
Okay.
here.
So just real brief, we're going to be diving into the certification differences. But just real quick, the difference on the federal side versus the state.
Nicole, you want to begin?
Sure, I'll begin on the federal side. So just in this table that we're looking at, the first sort of topic is regulations. And there are several sets of regulations within the federal market, the primary one being the Federal Acquisition Regulations, which is the set of regulations that most agencies follow. And then some agencies have supplements to those regulations, particularly the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations, and then the Department of Veteran Affairs and the General Services Administration have their own set of additional regulations as well.
And similar to the federal government, the majority of the government follows the Code of Maryland regulations. However, like the university system of Maryland does utilize their own set of regulations, which is the Board of Regents. Another governing body is also the Board of Public Works, and they oversee all procurement activity in the state of Maryland. So they'll put out advisories and things of that nature, which contractors should be familiar with as well.
Great. And as far as finding solicitations, our primary resource for that is sam.gov. For most agencies, the ones especially that follow the federal acquisition regulations, if they have opportunities that are greater than $25,000 in value, they're actually required to be posted publicly on sam.gov.
Yeah, and similar, eMaryland Marketplace Advantage, or EMA as we like to refer to it, is our primary e-procurement tool. And for executive departments within the state government, the regulation is that anything over $15,000 must be advertised on this system. However, other government organizations, including state, county, local, all have different requirements to utilize eMaryland Marketplace Advantage. So I encourage you to look at their local regulations, policies, laws, etc.
Perfect. And on the federal side, as far as contracting methods go, I won't go through everything in this list, but the two to key in on are going to be the negotiated proposal and quote. That's mostly how federal contracting happens. The government issues a request for proposals and industry responds. There are simplified acquisition regulations that we often see. Those are for opportunities and contracts that are less than, I believe, $300,000. So it's a lower dollar threshold. And the whole purpose is to simplify the acquisition process for contracts of that size.
Yeah, and similarly, there are a lot of different contracting methods that the state of Maryland utilizes, depending upon what we're purchasing, the amount of the purchase, what other contracting vehicles are available, and so forth and so on. And there's a lot of information we can share about this, but that's just a general idea, that list there you see under the state side.
So are there opportunities to prime in the federal space? The short answer is yes. The longer answer is everything that we've been talking about so far. Are companies going to be competitive as a prime on their first contract right out the gate in the federal space? Maybe not. And there are also some programs that can help certain types of companies leverage socioeconomic set-asides, which we'll talk about on the next slide, in order to win those set-aside opportunities. Other things to consider are bonding capacity and banking capacity requirements, which apply by NAICS or by industry type. So typically we'll see that in the construction industry, and a little bit more and more regularly now in the information technology, networking types of opportunities. So those are when there is a bonding capacity or a banking capacity requirement. We'll see that clearly in the solicitation.
And of course, there are opportunities to contract as a prime contractor with the state of Maryland. We want to extend prime contracting opportunities via just our normal competitive procurement methods. And one of the things we're going to talk about as far as prime contracting on the next slide is a socioeconomic program, the Small Business Reserve, that really helps to get small businesses into that prime contracting role.
So when it comes to the definition of a small business, on the federal side, the Small Business Administration publishes a table of NAICS code size standards. So this tells us exactly what is the definition of a small business in each industry as defined by NAICS codes. So for example, in many of the IT services NAICS codes, the standard for being a small business is that you have 3 years of annual receipts that total less than $30 million over the average of 3 years.
Yep. And the Code of Maryland Regulations outlines the qualifications for the Small Business Reserve Program. And then for the Minority Business Enterprise, which is, it is a small business program, but specifically for the, the certified minority businesses, you can see those standards within the MBE manual. There are links in this slide so that when Russell sends these out, that you all can access these specific references without having to do searches.
Market size on the federal market side, in fiscal year 2019, the government awarded about $130.8 billion to small businesses. So that's very specific to small businesses. The total market size was somewhere around $560 billion. And in our market, there's about, at least in that same time period, about 84,000 small business firms. So if you're doing the math, this is a pretty competitive market, but there's a lot of money going around, as you can see.
And the same for the state. I mean, obviously our numbers are going to be a little smaller. We're the state, but there's a lot of money going to small businesses, minority-owned business, and veteran-owned small businesses, all that serve within that small business realm. You can see $547 million went to small businesses through the Small Business Reserve Program. $971 was awarded to minority business enterprises, and then $31 million was awarded to veteran-owned small business enterprises. So there's a lot of money going around to these businesses, and again, these are based on the certifications. So in order to receive these payments and/or awards, you must be certified in the applicable programs. Within the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, you can find the breakdown of these payments by which organizations are making them within the state. So how much each organization is paying, and some other really, really important, or I should say really valuable information to to evaluate the market and see where the money's being spent and by whom.
Very good. And then in the last session, we were talking a lot about set aside contract types and socioeconomic programs. And so just an overview on the federal market side, there's the primary small business program. It's just a small business program. And there's nothing that you really need to do to participate in that program except to register in sam.gov and make sure that your organization, that you're aware of your organization's NAICS code size standards. The remaining programs in the list are specific socioeconomic programs that companies apply for. And I did notice a question in the Q&A. Just because you are a woman-owned small business or a minority business enterprise on the Maryland side does not necessarily mean that you are in any of these programs on the federal side. You would have to apply for those federal programs individually. And go ahead, Russ.
I was just going to say, do you really, I'm asking this to the participants, do you really think that the federal government and the state of Maryland would actually get together and cooperate and coordinate things? So there is a line between the federal side and the state side. They are different processes. So just because you're on the state side doesn't mean you're on the federal and vice versa. It means nothing. You have to go through the process separately.
Exactly. And I don't want to add fuel to the fire here, but even within the federal government, where all agencies are not necessarily communicating, the Department of Veterans Affairs has its own special set-aside program for veteran-owned small businesses. But just keeping it very general, I think one of the major differences with our set-aside types is that women-owned small business and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses are called out separately. So they are not, a woman-owned small business is not a small disadvantaged business, which has socioeconomic set-asides using other sort of minority group types.
Yeah. And yeah, so as Nicole mentioned and Russell emphasized, just because you're certified in the federal government does not mean those certifications apply to the state government. So we have, and even the programs, not only the certifications, but the programs operate differently. We have a small business reserve program, and that is a race and gender neutral program that is for certified small businesses based on the size standards that I had mentioned earlier is in the Code of Maryland regulations. And that is a prime contracting program. That program is designed to help those certified businesses obtain contracts as a prime contractor, a way of getting you involved in the state contracting process and getting a contract directly with the state government, as opposed to the minority business enterprise program and the veteran-owned small business enterprise program. Those programs are primarily designed to help get those certified businesses a piece of the action. They're not programs designed to set contracts aside as prime contractors, but instead set aside portions of contracts so that you as a certified company can get some experience as a subcontractor working with the state government. Again, we always encourage these certified businesses to pursue contracts as the prime contractor, and there are benefits to doing so, as I'd mentioned earlier. But it's really important to understand how each of these programs works to figure out if the program is a good fit for your company. If, like Russell mentioned, certification is going to be valuable. A lot of these certifications, they take some time. So you want to make sure that you're going to, if you go through the process of getting certified, you find value in that certification. One thing I do want to emphasize with the veteran-owned small business enterprise, because I receive this question a lot, is people are looking for service-disabled veteran-owned business programs. Within the state of Maryland, our veteran-owned small business enterprise does not distinguish between service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses and non-service disabled. So just keep in mind, it's the same qualification criteria for all of those businesses. So that's a very brief snapshot of the socioeconomic programs. But The links that I provide you in this slide take you to the Governor's Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs webpage, which provides you with more information and details about each program. So please take the time to learn about the programs and how the programs operate to determine how you can best leverage your certifications to obtain contracts.
So I want to emphasize that, and I'm going to use an actual business that actually did this. It was a minority business enterprise, an MBE, who lived in the state world, state contracting world, very successful. And she wanted to go into federal contracting. So she started to promote herself in the federal world. She is a Caucasian woman who has her MBE. So she went into the federal agencies and started to say that she is a minority-owned firm. And she's not. So on the federal side, being a minority-owned firm and on the state side are two totally different things. So Caucasian women are included on the state side as minority, but on the federal side, they're not. So she was, in a sense, committing federal fraud. So when it comes to these contracting certifications, on either side, federal or state, you have to think about it as rungs on a ladder to climb a wall. It doesn't get you all the way there. You still have to climb it. You still have to work it. You still have to connect with buyers. You still need to do the market research. It doesn't just automatically eliminate the wall. You have to think of it as rungs on a ladder to help you get over a wall. Now, the more rungs on a ladder, the more it could help you. So I remember a federal government contracting person. She was known in the contracting world as the 4-box lady because she was small business. She was 8A. She was Hubzone, and she was a women-owned small business. So she had 4 rungs on her ladder on the federal side. Did not mean that she was just going to be handed a contract. She still had to work to climb over the wall. She had to climb up that, and a ladder doesn't get you all the way over the wall. It's just a tool to help you. So again, if you have any questions on it, we're going to dive deeper into the 8A and the Hubzone certifications on the federal side. Now, and if you want to, when you're trying to build relationships with buyers, something that they tell me over and over again of what not to do. What buyers hate is when a business opens the conversation with their certifications. What they want is for you to open the conversation with what are you going to do for that agency? What is your capabilities? What is your past performance? And then say, oh, by the way, I'm 8A and Hubzone, or oh, by the way, I'm MBE. So my suggestion is don't open a conversation with a buyer as you're utilizing the tools that are listed here. Don't open up the conversation, make it an oh, by the way. So in the few minutes that we have left, I'm going to dive deeper into on the federal side in a second. But do you ladies have anything more that you want to add to not only the certifications, but how to connect with buyers and to do the research?
Sure. I think in terms of the set-asides too, I want to be very clear that they're not required on the federal side, except if you're pursuing contracts that are set aside. I think that there was a question in the Q&A, and I'm not sure if it got answered exactly, but you can do business on the federal market without entering into any of these socioeconomic programs, but these socioeconomic programs can help you leverage your business's size and pursue contracts that are set aside specifically. And then in terms of connecting with buyers, exactly what Russell said, lead with your capabilities. I think it's so tempting because vendors, you will be asked if you are a small business, if you're a small disadvantaged business. And so that could make it tempting to lead with your socioeconomic designation. But at the end of the day, buyers do business with companies because they're going to help them solve a problem. And the problem is usually not that they're looking for small businesses to work with. So connecting with the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, which most federal agencies have an office like that, or a small business office, that can be your first entry in the door to begin to learn about that agency, as well as to present your capabilities to those individuals. Can use industry days, LinkedIn, and capabilities briefings to accomplish your initial sales pitch.
So on the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business, or the Small Business Office, depending on the agency, their role is not to support the small business. People think that, oh, they need to return the phone call because that's their job. No, that's my job. That's Arthenia's job, is to help small businesses. Their job, their customer is not you. Their customer is the contracting officer to help that agency reach the goal. So if they don't respond to you, that means that they just don't need what you offer today. So build a relationship with them. I'm going to be talking specifically on the federal side of some tools to help you build that relationship, but they do business with people they have a relationship with, and they have a relationship with people they trust. So build that trust. Their job is not to be there for you. Their job is to be there for the contracting officer. So you need to make sure that you're communicating to them their way. With the information they want to build trust, to have a relationship so that they utilize your services.
And Russell, I just wanted to end with emphasizing something Nicole had said that's so incredibly important, is that these certifications, even on the state side, are not required to do business with the state of Maryland. These are just tools to help you expand opportunities for you to obtain a state contract. So if you do not have these certifications at this particular time, but you still feel that you're qualified and able to pursue state contracts, please do so. But also look at the certifications, because if they can help you get contracts, that's just another, rung in that ladder. And then as far as connecting with the buyers, just the one thing I wanted to mention is that connecting with the buyers is really based on who's buying and what programs you're trying to utilize to get the contracts. As I mentioned, Small Business Reserve is a prime contracting program. Everything that comes out through the Small Business Reserve will be advertised on eMaryland Marketplace Advantage, and it will be competitive. Whereas the Minority Business Enterprise and the Veteran-Owned Small Business Prize are subcontracting programs. Therefore, one of the things you want to make sure you do is you connect with prime contractors. So just keep in mind who your audience or who you're working for when you're thinking about connecting with those buyers.
So diving a little deeper into the federal certifications, we're going to dive into the Hubzone and the 8A. Not to say that they're any more important than any of the other ones, but there's some changes and some nuances that we're going to be diving into. We wish we had time to dive into all of them specifically, but we're going to be getting into just two on the federal side. So with us on the Hubzone is Michelle. Michelle, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Michelle Burnett. I'm the Executive Director of the Hubzone Contractors National Council. We're a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to advocating and promoting the Hubzone program. To our organization, obviously nothing really happens unless there is advocacy. There's a lot of things that are flawed with the acquisition process, and we as an organization work towards the betterment of this program. Our primary focus is increasing Hubzone opportunities, regulatory reform, and really promoting the community and economic development. So if you're unfamiliar with the Hubzone program, it was established in 1997 as a jobs bill with the primary goal to facilitate job creation and economic growth within underserved communities. And that crosses every barrier. The Hubzone program is aligning with rural America, urban America, tribal lands, areas impacted by natural disasters. Essentially, the Hubzone program is about targeting resources and support to those that have the most need. That is a program that was very easy for me to get behind. There's obviously certain eligibility requirements for the program, which indicate that, you know, companies, and I'll go into it, is set aside opportunities, sole source awards. To explain the premise of the Hubzone program, it's founded on the concept of the multiplier effect. Small changes in the program can make insurmountable impacts. For those that are familiar with the Hubzone program, there's specific eligibility requirements. So if you look at it, this goes into the contracting. He's flipping these screens, but this is a good way of keeping me quick. So Hubzone Contracting here will show you the specific socioeconomic set-asides and the benefits. I'm going quickly through these things just so you guys have written reference when he distributes them. Just explains, like, you know, what's the capacity for sole sourcing and things to that regard. But if he wants to go ahead and switch to the next slide, I'll emphasize where I was talking about the benefits of the program, like the eligibility requirements as they relate to the multiplier effect. 35% in principal office. The goal is for you to locate your business in underrepresented, underserved communities and hire people in those communities. That's it. Because once you create job creation, what do? When you have money, you spend money, and it creates a really big trickle down effect within the economy. So that is what the Hubzone program is about. There's 4 eligibility requirements. You must be small. You must be 51% owned and controlled by a U.S. citizen, and it used to have to be directly. But SBA in May of 2019 made a change where it could be indirectly, because a lot of times holding companies have become far more popular. You must have 35% of your overall employees reside in a Hubzone, not the same Hubzone as your principal office, and then a principal office, which is defined by the location with majority of your employees in a Hubzone. Now, for those that are certified or have kind of dabbled in the certification process, there has been a lot of changes recently. So the SBA completely did an entire overhaul of the Hubzone program, the biggest overhaul since the program's inception in 1997. The Hubzone Council was instrumental in working with SBA and Congress, which led to this overhaul. We were actually the ones that got the language in under the NDAA that led to it. Not raising my hand on all the program changes, some are regulatory, but SBA has developed a lot of processes and procedures to align with those statutory changes. So I really want to emphasize, for when you guys do read these slides, make sure you understand the definition of employee and principal office as the Hubzone program defines it, because it is probably very different than what is defined in, you know, the 8A program. If we move forward, there has been significant changes as the way SBA defines. For a long time, the Hubzone program wasn't as popular. You didn't see a lot of set-asides because it's very susceptible to protests. People felt like they were on an emotional roller coaster trying to maintain compliance. So SBA made significant changes, which included freezing the Hubzone map. So if you guys know that the Hubzone map was frozen, and it does indicate that December of the end of 2021, everyone's like, what am I going to do? What's going to happen? Well, SBA put out proposed language that will take final effect here shortly, freezing the Hubzone map until June 30th of 2023. So if you are currently in one of those redesignated areas and we're having a mini heart attack because you didn't know what you were going to do in December, it's pretty likely that there's not going to be any negative impacts. I haven't talked to anybody that was upset with that change. So the maps will be frozen until June 30th of 2023. There has been significant changes to legacy employees, even that what SBA released in in January of 2021. So SBA did an updated FAQ that released in April. A lot of these changes are about a 360 degrees about what came out last year. And So where SBA is kind of backtracking on what type of employees can be used as legacy employees. And so I really referenced everybody to check that out. If you want to go to the next slide, if you are not currently certified and you're thinking about applying for the Hubzone application, SBA has been working to try to streamline the application process. In doing so, they're reducing a lot of the timeframes for companies with applying. The biggest one of which is once you submit your application, you're going to have 3 days to upload. Previously, it was 10 days. That is a huge shift and kind of like a whirlwind for individuals that might have been preparing with the old process. They've changed their document request tool, and then they've created an eligibility calculator, which they cannot require people to use. However, if you are applying, I highly, highly, highly recommend you use their new eligibility calculator. It will streamline the process and make things a lot easier for you. You'll see on the screen a couple of the other key changes, but the one big thing is SBA is being very strong about if you do not respond or that you do not respond within the time frame, they're going to potentially decline you versus withdraw you, which gives you a 90-day waiting clock. That is a problem, but the council has submitted a list of concerns to SBA because we do believe that some of these changes are a little bit overly harsh. But we are working with SBA to make sure that this isn't going to negatively impact companies currently participating and or interested in the program. If you want to switch to the next slide. There is quite a few changes. A lot of people use virtual offices. So make sure that you read this when he distributes it out about the changes with the virtual office space and how SBA is going to be interpreting it, because I do think that this is going to impact a lot of people that use that type of a version of dedicated desk. So they are really cracking down because they want to make sure people are embracing the true intent of the program. You want to switch to the next slide? COVID flexibilities, obviously a lot of people are still teleworking, but the goal is to get people back into the office because this is an economic development program and the commercial real estate part of it, component is a huge variable, but SBA is still accommodating, and the flexibilities for COVID-19, which you'll see here on the slide and you guys can read when he submits it out, will be in effect until at least September 30th of 2021 as of right now. If you want to switch to the next one, this will break down, these are all live links in this presentation where you can see step by step how you can apply, as well as the tips and tricks about applying for the application. At the bottom of it where it says top tips for Hubzone certification process, I encourage everybody to, when he distributes this, to click on that, read through that, and make sure that you're prepared before going forward, because preparation is key. SBA does not, they don't have the time to handhold you through this process. And that's why you have all these resources on this call. Everyone on this call is a great resource to have conversations with if you're struggling with this process, myself included. So if you're running into an issue, but you know, they're not trying to be sticklers, but they have limited resources and they got a lot to do. So if you go to the next slide, the Hubzone Council, obviously we are an organization. We have quite a few upcoming events. If you are currently certified, I recommend you consider our strategic summit. It's going to be very hands-on. We're also going to have a month-long virtual summit, which is going to cover a lot of key topics impacting small business. And, if you're a golfer, I am not, I like to drive the golf cart, but it's a great way. We like to create a lot of different environments that enable people to interact and connect, because with small businesses, yeah, you guys are competitors, but also sometimes you're your biggest allies. So it's important to always look at that. And I'm really happy to be here with one of my biggest allies, Paula from National 8A. I really appreciate always working with them. So at the end of this, I just wanted to recommend, since there is a lot of things that are changing, bills are coming out of Congress faster than I can read them. So if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, it is completely free. And also I supplied a couple quick links for you guys here, all live links that will give you a bit more information about the Hubzone program, what's coming down the pike, as well as my contact information, which you guys are welcome to reach out. But with that, I will pass it over to a great friend of mine and mentor, Paula.
Now that was an awesome introduction, so thank you so much. And I highly encourage everyone to check out the Hubzone Council and all of the amazing resources and items that they have coming up. So we're going to transition and talk about the 8A Association. So if you're not familiar with the 8A Business Development Program, it is a program specifically for minority-owned businesses. There are certain requirements. You have to be a U.S. citizen. You have to be in business for at least 2 years. showing the potential for success. So whether that be via revenues, whether that be via new contracts received, it is basically a business development program where the SBA comes in, and once you submit your application and are approved, and you'll need to check in for certain milestones over the length of the program. The 8A program is a little bit different than some of the other programs because it does have a finite amount of time. 9 years is the length of the program, and you are only eligible to apply and have it once. So if you do receive your 8A application approved, then you have 9 years to kind of hit the ground running to use that contracting vehicle as a resource. So moving it over to us in the National 8A Association, we are an educational industry trade association that provides resources and basically networking and additional support to those businesses that are either looking to become 8A, are 8A, are graduated 8A, or small businesses that are looking to partner with 8As. So a lot of times people come to us and they say, I'm not 8A, or I'm not eligible to be 8A. I'm not a minority-owned business. So the information that you have isn't relevant to me. The reality is that, especially in the federal sector, partnering is a great way as a small business to be able to emphasize your skill sets while ensuring that you're working to provide the government with an overall solution and be eligible to bid on more potential opportunities. So by teaming, that opens that up to a wealth. You can pretty much do everything or anything if you find the right teaming partner. So we highly encourage and have a variety of different resources available on our website and in our events that you use this as a resource for that teaming if you're not specifically looking to or are not eligible to be an 8A. And my slides are going a mile a minute, so my apologies. So if we go back one, we do have for those that are maybe not necessarily an 8A yet, looking to become one in the future or not, looking to team with one, not necessarily to jump into that paid level. We have a free membership as the 8A Association. So we primarily provide resources similar to Hubzone Council, but for 8A specific. So teaming information, information on rules and regulations related to SBA, the 8A program, and information about our events that include a variety of different resource partners, including the Hubzone Council. So our free association membership, which can be found on our website, which will be on the last slide, does entitle you to receive basically some money off of our events. If you decide to attend, you can get up to $50 off any of our event tickets. In addition, it allows you to have access to, and if you move to the next slide, our bi-weekly email blast. And this is kind of stay in the know. So it's going to be information that on news, resources, and upcoming events within the next 2 weeks. These get delivered to your inbox every 2 weeks, and they're part of that free membership level. It includes everything from other agency events, other agency small business, if the Department of Treasury is looking, or the Department of Defense is having a small business resource event. It's going to include all of your vetted or a lot of your vetted information with industry events, as well as information on informational webinars, such as we did a slew of those on COVID, and how as a small business you can have access to different educational resources, grants, as well as different things you can and cannot ask your employees, wage certification, what you need to do and what you need to know in terms of COVID and things along those lines. So that gets delivered to your inbox every 2 weeks under that free membership. In addition, you do get invitations to other smaller events that we do that are more curated based on what you're looking to do. So we encourage everyone to go to our website, click on the join now, and you'll see that free membership right there. But our website, if you decide you don't want to join, or maybe if you do join and you go to our website, you also get a wealth of additional information. We include access if you weren't able to pay to attend any of our events in the past. We do include all of our PowerPoint presentations free of charge to the public. So that's going to include all of your SBA presentations, all of your agency presentations, all of your industry resource partner presentations, all of the content, the actual PowerPoint slides are available on our past conference page. There's a wealth of information on there. Some of it is region specific, and that goes back all the way through 2020. In addition, next slide. If you are on our website and checking it out, we have some really exciting new events coming up. We're kind of hearing from members and from the small business community that they'd like to take that fourth quarter and start to build their pipeline. So we have partnered with a variety of our different agencies and associations to put on 3 events that we currently have on the schedule. We have our Alaska Regional Conference that is kind of our flagship, and that occurs usually in the summer every June. That will be held end of August, and that registration is live on our website. I'll note here, if you sign up for the free registration and you'd like to attend any of our events, you get $50 off any of these conference registrations. We also just announced our New Orleans Regional Conference that will be in late November, right before late October. And then we have our national conference, which is we anticipate just over 1,000 attendees, government agencies, matchmaking, and a variety of resource partners. And that will be in Orlando in January 2022. So we encourage you to check out our website. There's a lot of different information out there. And if you go to the next slide, you can also email us. So a lot of times your questions can be answered relatively quickly by our team because we're in it and we know where to find that information, or we can point you towards the credible resources like SBDC or PTAX or contacts at SBA related to the 8A program. So feel free to email us. Definitely check out our website. And with that, I'm 1 to 2 minutes early, so I'll turn it back to Russell.
Can I take one comment to let everybody know? Under the Biden administration, the 8A program, as she mentioned, Hubzone is a contracts program. 8A is a business development program. So they couple very well to one another because they're not really competition. But with the 8A program, the Biden administration is looking to really revitalize it. So if those that have been reading it, he wanted to have a significant increase in the amount of set aside spending that went to, technically, because 8A is the only certification process under SDB. So when he made the comment earlier about the federal government, where the woman was considered fraud, well, the federal government doesn't have a minority-owned program. 8A is not even technically minority, but that is one of the components for eligibility for 8A that is taken into consideration. But just wanted to make sure 8A is going to be becoming a lot more popular. So I want to make sure everybody takes that into consideration and is really watching that, because there's probably going to be an increased amount of spending that we see coming out of the 8A program here soon.
So
Well,
go ahead, Paula.
I was going to say, I encourage you also to take a look. Our website has our virtual day presentations, and there was information on there directly from legal at SBA of a regulated sector this year that were approved and late last year. So as Michelle said, we're expecting potentially a lot more, but that at least gets you up to speed on some of the information, and those presentations are available on our website.
So looking at specifically diving into the 8A certification, the SBA has the information, but what I'm going to share with you based on my experience is what they're looking to read. So I'm not going to restate what they already have on their website, but I'm going to give you some insights of what they want to read. And Paula, if you want to add. So what they're looking to read is that you own and operate the business. So just because you own it doesn't mean that you operate the business. So that you need to prove that you operate the business, that you are socially and economically disadvantaged. One of the things is that people say, well, I'm socially disadvantaged, but you got to prove that you're economically disadvantaged along with that. So for example, Oprah Winfrey is socially disadvantaged, but Oprah Winfrey is not economically disadvantaged. And then the third thing, and this is me, is the SBA is wanting to make sure that you're going to be successful. So they don't want, even though it's a business development program, they seem to be very cautious and wanting you to prove in your application that you're going to be successful. So here's a few things from my perspective, from my experience. And one of the things that that I've asked, and I've spent many years, decades actually, in helping businesses with the 8A application is, am I the right person to do this? Because the program is not for white men. And should a white male be actually sharing this information? And the SBA's response is that I am the one that can to say things. So when looking to own and operate is to be organized. You know, I used to, it's sending everything electronically now, but I still encourage people to go through the checklist, create a tab in a binder and begin organizing everything that you're going to submit. Now, where a lot of people get hung up is they're asking for things that don't apply. So they're going to send back your application if they have any questions. So my suggestion is for everything they ask for, if it doesn't apply, have a piece of paper that says not applicable and sign it in blue ink to show that it's original so that they know that you've submitted everything. Because what they're looking for is to make sure that you have not transferred the ownership over to a white male on a napkin. And I was told this was an actual true case where somebody did that. And because the SBA did not ask for the white napkin, I asked for the napkin, it was never, so that's why this list keeps getting longer over the years. Now, to help you prove that you're in control of it, again, it's own and control. So having signed affidavits, which is a legal way of having a letter signed in front of it, having them sign it in front of a notary, makes it a signed affidavit, showing that the applicant is the boss. Having one from a customer, having one from the vendor, having one from an employee that says that they report to you, saying that, contracting decisions are made by the applicant. But the SBA could come back and say, well, all those people have a vested interest, customer, vendor, employee. So I've suggested people add a neutral business neighbor, somebody that's not a customer, vendor, employee, that just says, from what they observe, they're the boss. And don't use the word the boss, but that's what they want to read, is that you own and operate the business. Everything is to make sure that you're not a puppet for a white male. The program is not for white men. So, so can Caucasian women apply? Absolutely. But it's proving that you're not a puppet for a white male. So don't commit fraud. Don't embarrass the SBA again in front of Congress. Just demonstrate. So that disadvantage narrative is that you are socially and economically disadvantaged. So everybody needs to do this. Women are just at a higher level that they're going to be looking at. Caucasian women. So that narrative, they're looking for a case, an argument for both. So what I suggest to people is go to that quiet place, and I have a visual exercise that I walk applicants through, and bring with them a non-alcoholic beverage. And then write down what happened in their life on one piece of paper. Then take a drink of that non-alcoholic beverage, and then have them walk through their life again. This time, walk through their life as if they are a white male and list how things would have been different if they were a white male. And then from that, circling the 9 best situations. And one of the key things is making sure that you're outlining how you're making less money. This is a business development program. So how the social discrimination, again, if it Caucasian women, how that you're making less money than if you were a white male. And they really—
I'm sorry, I can't keep, because the 8A program isn't a minority-owned program. It is a disadvantage, and the definition of disadvantage, it can be individuals with disabilities. It's economically disadvantaged. It's not just proving you're not a white male.
hold
There's
on.
other components.
I know. Hold on to that. Okay. So circling the 9 best. Now, can you be socially and economically disadvantaged and being a white male? Yes. Okay. So there are other criteria. Read the SBA website for that. But what they're looking for is that key thing of social and economic disadvantage. So just because you're socially disadvantaged doesn't mean that you're economically. So generally speaking, most of the applicants don't fit into that white male category of being disabled. So they're going to be looking very carefully at that. And I want to emphasize they're looking at for education, employment, and business, those 3. So my suggestion is be very, very organized. Have at least 3 paragraphs for each scenario. Give details about in your story how you were hurt by a white male. There are exceptions to that rule, but generally it's looking at how you've been hurt by a white male. Now, in this story, showing the economic impact from that social discrimination. Now, if you just came up with these scenarios, the SBA is thinking, well, how did it really impact you? So having signed affidavits of witnesses that people that either witnesses or in most cases, people you told back then. So this is the reason why you keep forming friends. And document the economic impact compared to white men. A lot of times, it's using third-party data, studies of how, there were programs for men in sports and scholarships, but not for women. There's a lot of third-party data. So I've gone through a whole lot of things. But the key thing is to remember it's social and disadvantage, own and control. And the third thing, real quick, is showing that you are successful. They don't want to be embarrassed again. So one thing I recommend people do is to look at current 8A set-asides and to show that you can prove that you can perform now in those current 8As in the NAICS code. And one of the ways to do that is through your bonding capability. So showing that you have financing capability. Now, don't wait till when you need money, because no banker wants to lend to you when you need money. Only have it when you want money. So here is a phrase that I suggest when you're talking with a banker. This is how I look now. This is what I want. How do I need to look to get what I want? Don't put them in a decision-making role. Put a banker in the consulting role. So here is, and I'll send this out to everybody, but here is a 2-page summary that answers 95% of what an underwriter is looking at. And here's some quick math of what an underwriter is looking at. For every $100,000, they want a debt coverage ratio of 1.5 times. So that is showing that you have cash flow of $36,000. Now, looking at how you can climb the wall. 2 points with this visual. One is go paths that people have gone before. Also, you help others. So this is a visualization of things that were put on a wall to help climb. So find areas that you can follow others. And the other is the rope, is someone who's over the fence, say a prime contractor throwing you a rope to help you get over that wall. So looking at more tools, I want to bring Nicole back, and I'm going to stop sharing. So Nicole, if you could pull up your slide.
Okay. You see it?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So, talking about tools for business development and specifically how to use them. So I'm going to go through a couple of things here in my overall presentation, just looking at what tools are available to help us find, identify, win opportunities with the federal government. And I don't think I really had a chance to introduce myself earlier. I won't get too much into this because you've already heard me speak quite a bit, but I've personally coached over 54 small business leaders to achieve and surpass their expectations for growth in government contracting. I focus on the sales side, so everything in the realm of business development that I'm going to be sharing with you. This is what I've been doing for over 10 years with over 54 companies individually. There is a resource that I'm pulling from that is available as a download on my website at fedinform.us/tools and resources. You can go there, download a PDF of exactly what you see on your screen right here. And this is the basis for what I'm going to be talking about as I'm talking about tools in business development. The first one is sam.gov. So sam.gov is, we spoke about it earlier. I won't get into too much detail on this one, but it's a website for companies to go and research contract opportunities with the federal government. You can see contract opportunities that are open for any business type, as well as opportunities that are set aside specifically for small businesses or participants in the socioeconomic programs that we've been talking about. The federal procurement data system is one of my favorite tools that's very robust. Just to talk a little bit about what that is, it's a searchable database of unclassified prime contracts that have been issued by federal government agencies. So it's information that is historical. It's contracts that have already been awarded. But what can we do with this information? We can use it to forecast recompete opportunities. So a lot of times in the federal space, a lot of the work that's happening is actually a recompete of a previous contract. So understanding and being able to search for these government contracts that have been awarded in the past are really valuable to help us build sort of a short list of opportunities that we can compete against in the recompete. SPDF&G has so much information in it about the opportunity or the contract, whether it was set aside for small business, who the incumbent was, when the contract expires, and even the value of the contract. So a lot of times this will be part of my strategy in building a pipeline 9 times the revenue goal, is to look at what contract recompetes we can target and forecast for recompetition. I mean, I mentioned that you can also get incumbent information, and so we can sort of ghost our competitors. So if we have a short list of competitors who are in a similar market to us, we can go ahead and learn a little bit about the contracts that they specifically hold. Performance.gov. This website is actually not available at the moment. It's being updated with the new Biden administration. But what it is it gives us a glimpse into sort of the high-level strategic planning for government agencies. So we can go to this performance.gov website and download agency strategic plans. And by the way, since it's not really operating right now, all you need to do is just go to Google and Google the agency that you're looking for and strategic plan. These are all publicly available pieces of information. But what can we do with a strategic plan? We can use it to understand our customer, understand the vision and the high level initiatives that our customers are going after, and we can align ourselves with those initiatives. So for example, on your screen, you see this snapshot of a copy of the DHS's strategic plan. One of their objectives states that it's to improve security and resilience of DHS networks and sensitive data as part of ongoing information technology modernization efforts. So this kind of tells us a lot of stuff. It tells us that the agency is focused on information technology modernization and that they have some specific initiatives in place to improve security and resilience of their networks. So if we're an organization that can help solve that problem, then we can align ourselves with this agency and keep an eye out for opportunities that will specifically address this requirement or initiative. IT dashboard is specific for IT services companies. And what this does is it gives us a high-level overview of information technology investments and programs within the federal government. So we can go to itdashboard.gov and look at a summary of the agency's technology portfolio. So on your screen, you can see one from the Department of Health and Human Services. And this website also lists out the individual information technology programs and investments. So this is very useful. As you can see, you can tell how much spending goes towards these particular programs. And you also see that there is a hyperlink, and that hyperlink can give us some really valuable information. The hyperlinks are only available for some of the major programs, not the minor programs. But what that link does, it gets us into sort of a summary of that exact investment. So we can see the approximate value of that investment, how many government full-time employees are working on that investment. We can see the cost variance and the schedule variance on the program, as well as another hyperlink you might see sort of on the left-hand side towards the bottom, download business case PDF. This download business case PDF will actually give us a business case of the investment itself. Super useful, especially as we are targeting opportunities and maybe with agencies that we haven't done business with in the past or on programs that we haven't targeted in the past. So we can actually start to build our knowledge of a particular program and also why it's so important to the agency. This is actually a 39-page document, which I will not show you the whole thing, but it does go on to list the some of the program names, other details about the program, and even the contracts that are associated with this program. So now you can actually take that list of contracts that are associated with the program, take that information over to the federal procurement data system and learn about the recompete timeline for each of those specific contracts. The Government Accountability Office publishes several reports. You may have heard of them if you are actively bidding in the federal market space. The Government Accountability Office is the office that is responsible for hearing protests and making protest decisions. So in the federal marketplace, if there is an acquisition and industry thinks that it's not being handled legally according to the federal acquisition regulations or unfairly, they can actually protest that solicitation or that decision that the government made. So the GAO will hear those decisions and publish a result similar to the one on the right-hand panel of your screen, where you can actually learn a little bit about how that, that acquisition was decided and what was unfair or fair about it, depending on the GAO's decision. And this can give us some really robust information as well about the previous competitors. So if I've got a contract that I'm targeting for the recompete and I learned that it was previously the competition was previously protested, I can download this GAO report and it might tell me information about who the other competitors were. Very useful information to help me establish my organization as the one that should be selected above all others, because I can know my competition and write that in my proposal response. The other thing that the GAO does is they also publish reports on specific programs. So on the left-hand side of your panel, you'll see, I know it's very small, but it's a report that's published about a specific Department of Health and Human Services program, where they discuss, some of the things that are working on the program and the things that are not working on the program. Very useful information, again, for building our knowledge of programs and helping to identify maybe areas where we can actually serve a program if we can help solve a particular problem on a program. Next is oversight.gov, and here's where we can search all of the Inspector General reports in one place. So Inspector General is very similar to the GAO. They are responsible for sort of evaluating the effectiveness of government programs. Most agencies have their own Office of Inspector General. And so just an example of what that might look like on your screen now is the Food and Drug Administration's Office of Inspector General report about how the agencies should do better at addressing post-market cybersecurity risks to medical devices. So we can come in here, we can learn about this need before it actually becomes a requirement and start to position our organization to address this need if this is something that we feel that we can support. I sort of debated whether to put this into the presentation at all, but if there are vendors on the call today who have not done work in the federal market and are curious about doing work in the federal market, maybe one thing to take a look at is, what do proposals in the federal market look like? They tend to be very complex in response to very complex solicitations. Now, this is actually a State of New Jersey website. It's the only agency across the federal space that I have ever seen. And this is not, okay, let me clarify, this is not a federal agency. And I have not found a similar resource to this one in the federal space. And I haven't found a similar resource to this one in Maryland. So that's why I've selected this New Jersey resource. But you can actually click into the solicitation and the responding proposals for some of these old contracts. Many of them are very old. You'll see they go back to 2006, in fact, on this website. But what you can do is start to build your understanding of what appropriately responsive proposal looks like. You won't be able to get that from many of your competitors or even your teaming partners to be able to see a full proposal like they have on this website. So it's a great resource if you're very new to federal or state contracting, I think. So those are sort of a high level resources. And what I want to do next is sort of dive into some of the resources that I mentioned and some that I did not mention, and really talk about what does it actually look like to find and convert 8A and Hubzone opportunities, or really any opportunities in the federal market. That's going to be the topic of this next segment here. So in order to dig into this topic, it's helpful to know the timelines and know the overall process that we're looking at. So what are our customers doing? Our customers.
Before you get into that, Nicole, just putting everything into perspective is, building that pipeline. So when I used to use my index cards and shoeboxes, it was, looking at opportunities on the federal side, opportunities on the state side, the local government, just focusing on the government side. There's the private sector as well. And then having that pipeline. So, defining what an A is, defining what a B is, defining what a C and a D is, and then having sub rankings of those A's of hot, warm, and cold. and the B's, hot, warm, and cold. And then C's and then D's that you do not want to contact for whatever reason. So what we're going to be walking through is a case study, and it's just one example, and just helping how to apply, because as previously said, knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. The application of knowledge is power. So looking at all of these tools that were talked about, all the different certifications, how can you apply that is what we're focusing on. So, Nicole.
Okay, great. Thank you for adding color to that introduction. All right, so looking at our customer's timeline, and this is just sort of the overall process of what's going to happen in order to sort of capture these opportunities. So our customer is going to be following the life cycle on your screen. They're starting with their program plan and budget, which we as vendors may or may not have visibility into, although we can get some of that through our strategic plans and through the president's budget request and other budgeting materials. The customer is also deciding their acquisition plan. We may or may not have some visibility into that stage as well. And then the customer develops their draft requirement, usually in a draft statement of work or a performance work statement. And oftentimes the agencies will publish that for industry to sort of read ahead. Associated with that activity is conducting market research. So the government does do market research to understand the capability of vendors to support particular requirements and to help them make acquisition decisions, whether to set aside a contract for a particular business or socioeconomic type, or to use a particular contracting vehicle to compete the program, or to not compete the program at all. After doing their market research, they will release their RFP or RFQ. And this is a formal solicitation phase where we are following a very formal process to respond to the RFP, and the government is providing answers to our questions, but in a very sort of specific and formal way, usually in writing. After we submit our proposals, the government will evaluate them, and that's when they will award and negotiate the terms of that final contract. This timeline can take anywhere from maybe 3 months for a very small requirement, up to 2 years or even maybe more for a larger and more complex requirement. So what are we doing on our end? Well, we are, especially if we are considering entering the market for, at the beginning, we are starting to segment the market. We want to understand how we are going to tackle this $560 billion market, especially as small businesses. So we do some work to segment out that market and establish our long-term positioning in the market. On an opportunity by opportunity basis, we are assessing our opportunities, participating in what we call capture planning, which very broadly is taking steps to improve our probability of win, to improve our position in the customer's eyes as us being the successful vendors on the contract. Proposal planning, which is generally maybe right around that time that market research or draft solicitations are released, we're starting to plan out our own proposal response. And then once that final RFP gets published is when we go into full proposal development mode. And then of course we have some post-submittal activities. Now what's on your screen now, what I've added at the bottom here are some of the activities that coincide with these timelines. So Pipley and Associates is an organization that sort of established a business development life cycle in the federal market. They documented it. It has about 97 steps, which is a lot. Even the most mature and the largest organizations in the field do not necessarily follow all 97 of Shipley's steps. So what I'm showing is sort of a condensed version of Shipley's steps. These are opportunities to increase our probability of win on a contract. And if you want to see the whole thing, I've provided the website for Shipley's 97-step process at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to touch on most of these activities. And like I said, organizations can do these activities or not do these activities. It's a matter of how do we establish our response in a very strong and put ourselves in a very strong position to win these contracts. Some reasons that you might decide not to do some of this activity could be timing issues, especially if an organization's executive team is primarily doing the business development as well. Some of these things may be, you may choose not to do some of these things, or because of your position. If you're priming a contract, these activities become more important for you to lead the team to success. If you're a subcontractor, hopefully your prime is participating in these activities, and they may ask you to participate in some and not others. So let's take a case study. Governmentary Inc. provides training and technical support for adult learners participating in community-based work programs, from coordinating logistics and accessibility of training sites to developing materials and delivering training. Governmentary ensures accessible training programs are available to diverse, underserved, and remote populations. And Governmentary Inc. is an 8A and Hubzone company located in Maryland.
Your screen did not move on my end.
It did not?
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. We'll leave that there. That case study, just know that any sort of similarity to actual companies is completely coincidental. I just completely made up everything that I just talked about. So let's say that I start working with Governmentary Inc. One of the first things that I'm going to do is start to work with them to segment the market. I want them to understand where they fit in this $560 billion market. A very powerful tool for doing that is usaspending.gov. With usaspending.gov, we can come in here. Excuse me, I hit the wrong thing. We can come in here and do a search on contracts that have been awarded by the government. So I might come in here and do a keyword search on curriculum development, which is only a small segment of my market, but at least it's a start. I can take a look at all the contracts that were awarded, maybe the past 3 years or so. I could specify that I want to look at only the contracts. And if I wanted to narrow this down a little bit more and learn a little bit more about my market, I could do that. But for now, for a very high level, we're just going to look at what we have. So this USA Spending is going to spit out the agencies that do business, that had solicitations for curriculum development. And I can even look at the geographical locations of where those contracts are located. So I can begin to build a picture of my strategy and my opportunity profile. So I've done this research and I can start to look at how this market segmentation can inform my long-term positioning. So based on what we just saw and some other searches that I did, I determined that our best opportunity is going to be in Maryland, Virginia, DC, and Pennsylvania. And by the way, that was not just based on the market itself, but it was also based on my capability. I'm located in Maryland, and so I want to do business in the surrounding areas. So I have an opportunity to visit customers and address any problems that arise on contracts myself with very limited travel. Because of our position in the market, we are projecting projects of about 500K to 15 million in value. That's about what our past performance indicates that we can successfully perform on. And then as an 8A and Hubzone company, we are looking for contracts that are set aside for 8As, Hubzones, small disadvantaged businesses, and full or partial small business set-asides. And ideally, our timeline is that we want to be able to capture an opportunity within about 6 months. So we don't want to find stuff where the solicitation is out right now. We actually want to have time to capture that opportunity. Then what I do is I drill down into the keywords that are relevant to governmentary, training support, support training, technical assistance, provide training. I would list out many, many more keywords than this. You might notice that I talk about the same concepts using different ways. So training support, I might come across a contract or a solicitation that says, we need a vendor to provide training support. Another solicitation might say, we need a vendor that is going to support training. And so these are why we want to have keywords that sort of address the same concepts using multiple ways that they could be written. Then I develop our NAICS codes. We are not bound by these NAICS codes, but I do want to be able to identify solicitations that are coming out in these NAICS codes. The NAICS code and the product and service code, which I'm going to get to in a minute, these are different ways of classifying sort of company capabilities or industries. And the NAICS code really describes the primary purpose of the requirement from the government's perspective. But the product and service code more accurately describes the work that's actually being done. So I'm just going to go ahead and list out all my NAICS codes and all my product and service codes so that I can capture all the different ways that contracts could be coded for my organization. And that's going to help governmentary navigate sites like sam.gov a little bit more easily. So when we go into sam.gov, as an example, we can search for contract opportunities. And to do that, we are searching a particular domain within sam.gov, and that's contract opportunities. We can plug in our keywords. We could plug in our NAICS and product and service codes if we wanted to. And then we can also narrow down by what kind of opportunity we're looking for, a sources sought, a pre-solicitation. Those notice types are the ones that are going to give us that 6 months plus of capture opportunity time. And then once we're in here, we can actually look at some of these opportunities and learn a little bit about the requirement and how it's set aside, if it's set aside for small businesses. So we found this opportunity, and this is a real program, something that I captured, I think back in 2006. This information should not be relevant anymore. But this is a specific program called the National Training and Technical Support for WIPA programs. So as we're doing our long-term positioning, one of the things that we're doing is identifying and evaluating an opportunity. So in this case, this opportunity hits on one of our NAICS codes. We know that it's an IDIQ type contract. It's got a 1-year base and 4-year option period of performance, which gives us a good 5-year contract if we win. The total contract value is about 13.1 million, right in our size structure, and the competition type is for small business. As well, we've identified the previous, this is a recompete, we've identified the previous solicitation so that we can look at the description of the requirement and understand how our organization aligns with this description of the requirement. We can actually go through line by line and evaluate whether we can complete each bullet. And if not, who are the partners and the companies that we need to team with in order to make sure that we can hit 100% of the requirements that the government is looking for. Yeah. As I'm assessing our opportunity, I'm also looking for some more information about the opportunity, as well as maybe the individuals that are involved or could help me get more information about an opportunity. So in this case, I've gone to LinkedIn and I've just plugged in the program name into LinkedIn, and the individual that comes up, Maria Diaz. She is a Social Security consultant and expert on security matters. And I noticed that she previously worked with the Social Security Administration for a very long time. She's now self-employed, so she's now engaged in consulting. This would be an excellent resource for me to call and learn a little bit more about the Social Security Administration and maybe even this program in particular. She may be able to help connect me with somebody at the Social Security Administration or within other industry partners that could help me target this opportunity. I'll do other research as well to really work on that network. I don't only go to LinkedIn, but that's a great resource to start to build our knowledge and sort of identify who we might need to add into our network or who's already in our network that can help give us some information and help us pursue a contract. We also want to do some pricing evaluation, and this can be really difficult, especially for new vendors entering the market. How do I price my my response to my solicitation? How do I price my services accurately and competitively? And there's some resources that'll help us do that. So for us, when we were looking at this opportunity, we had several labor categories that we needed to provide in order to achieve the objectives of the requirement. We knew generally what their education and experience level needed to be, and we did some research to understand what prices they are out there on the market right now. And we did a very simple 10% discount. This is extremely simplistic as a pricing strategy. I'm just using it as an example, but a lot of times what we'll do is we'll apply different discounts to different labor categories, depending on the availability of those types of labor categories. And there's a whole lot of different strategies we can take for pricing. But keeping it simple, calc.gsa.gov can help us develop our labor rate pricing in comparison to the prices that industry is offering. Now, a couple things to say about these prices. They look very high. They include an organization's wrap rate in the price, and there are also prices that are sort of ceiling prices. So these are the high prices, and then companies will discount from these prices as they respond to different contracts and task things. Whoops, sorry about this. I'm trying to get my video to play. So here we can go in here and we can just simply type in the labor category that we are looking for. So in this case, we're looking at that project director labor category. We can see that there's about 31 other labor categories that match this type, and we get an hourly rate. On the right-hand side of our screen, we could narrow this down to bachelor's degree, to the appropriate years of experience that we're looking for, and start to get sort of a competitive price range, which is going to be our target as we are pursuing this contract.
You have 1 minute left.
What? Okay. Next thing we do is we look at our potential competitors and teammates. Where do we find this information? fpds.gov, as we mentioned earlier. And we can also create some scoring methods to create a capability map of what our teammates and our competitors have to offer. So in this case, you can see that we did not have a very strong score on as far as our ability to respond directly to the government's requirements. And the incumbent had a very high score in terms of their ability. And so what did we do? We called the incumbent and we started talking with them about partnering. They were actually very open to that conversation. So just to skip ahead to sort of the proposal phase, the next phase of the process, there are many different methods that we can use to review our proposal to make sure it's compliant. One of the most challenging things about doing business in the federal market is developing a proposal that is compliant and compelling. So we use what we call color team reviews to bring others in to review our proposal and make sure that it's both compliant and compelling, and we do that in multiple stages. We also evaluate our pricing quite a bit to get the most competitive pricing, and then to make sure that our pricing doesn't have any mistakes in there when we go ahead to submit. Couple of tips which you can read on your own as far as how to handle these color team reviews that are going to be most effective. And then what we want to do post-submittal is organize our proposal files so that we have a record of what it is that we submitted. I actually had a customer call us 3 years after our proposal was submitted to enter into negotiations. I wasn't even working with the organization at that time, so having organized proposal files really helped us to pick up on that conversation and be very responsive to the government's request for negotiation. And then conducted lessons learned. This helps us understand what are the pros and cons of our process and what do we need to do to adapt. A very successful lessons learned review I had recently was with a recruiter. We had been going back and forth during this whole proposal, trying to get the right people. And we decided in our lessons learned that we needed to have a very solid recruiting kickoff at the very beginning of the proposal development phase, so that we would both be on the same page about what were the appropriate candidates for the proposal itself. Don't forget the win party. That's always at the end. We always want to acknowledge ourselves and our teams once we win that contract. And a lot of folks do small get-togethers periodically, just to make sure that the team is thanked, because it's very hard work, especially in the proposal phase. We may be doing a lot of things in a very short period of time, so don't forget to celebrate. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So just bringing it all home and with the resources. So here's some tools. I use my analogy. Can you see my screen, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. So using the analogy of climbing the wall, you want to use the tools and leave behind, help others as they progress, just as you want people to help you as you progress. So making it a easier climb on the wall. So some other resources really quick. Alicia, if you want to talk more about upcoming opportunities.
Yep.
Right?
So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, everybody. All the panelists were amazing. And again, this is really showing like federal, state, and local opportunities. And you covered an awful lot. And so pathways to procurement, I don't know why these slides are getting off like this, but basically the series that we are putting on combines with a number of different resource partners, and it talks about different ways to find procurement opportunities. Right now, today, you've learned a lot about business development opportunities. You've learned from Nicole, you've learned a lot from the 8A and the Hubzone Association about the way that different locations and or programs can help you in the federal procurement arena. And you heard from Eduardo and Kristen about state opportunities, and also from PTAC about the resources they have there. So there are many paths to procurement, and that is the key. You have to know who your target audience is and how you're going to reach them, and you have to be strategic about it. In the economic development world, we provide a number of resources, and we have liaisons, including my colleague David Lewis, who is our federal agency liaison. In the Economic Development Agency, we also have resources and tools to help our federal, state, and local government contracting opportunity companies. And so reach out to us, as you might want to reach out to your other local economic development entities. We provide connections to financing and to other partners. As you've noted today, we're part of a business incubator community. I noted during today's presentation that we have 2 8A companies within our incubator. There are also 8A companies within the BUI-BIC. So just know, if you're looking to partner with other 8A companies, maybe reach out to your local incubators to learn more about the companies within those. Coming up, we are working on 2 additional programs for Pathways to Procurement, June 16th. We'll have Selling to the Federal Government, which is tomorrow. And I would say that if anybody's trying to reach the OSDBUs of FEMA, GSA, or HHS, you may want to register for that. Sorry, I did add an extra letter. So the link was put into the chat. You can register for that online. And then June 30th, we'll be doing a program again with PTAC on marketing to prime construction companies. So there's, if you go to www.pgc.com and /pathways, you'll see all of our programs there, recordings and other sessions upcoming. So please just know you have lots of resources as we've talked about today. And as always, we love to partner with SBDC and Russell Teeter and the CEO Accelerator Program. So thank you all to everybody, and just stand by and know that there are more great programs out there and support for all of you. So listen through this. You learned a lot today. You're probably going to need to listen to this a couple different times to figure out which portions apply to you, depending upon whether you're going after state, local, or federal opportunities, or all of the above. Thank you.
In addition to those resources, there's more resources. If you have not connected yet with the Maryland PTAC, I strongly encourage you to do that, not only for their training programs, but also for counseling. We have Arthenia with us. So Arthenia, do you want to give some final words of wisdom?
Yes, I think this has been truly, really great. Russell, thank you for being a part of the PTAC. And we just want to simply say that we're here to assist you and your government marketing strategies. We very fond of helping clients with their capability statements, making sure that they are ready to do business with the local, state, or federal government. We also have our bid match service that we have a subscription for. It's $120 per year, where you actually will get notifications sent directly to your inbox based on your next codes and your word descriptions. Once you get those solicitations, we are here to help you review the solicitations, make sure that you have the past performance, make sure that your labor categories are in competition to help you to win, look at your labor rates, look at the different contract regulations, whether they be COMA or whether they be the FAR. So we're here to help. As it was stated, we have a lot of good training programs that are coming up. It is the government's end of the fiscal year for the state and the federal. So the government is spending a lot of money. So just be ready. We're here to help. Thank you, Russell.
Thanks. So in addition to all the other training, also the Alliance for Hispanic Commercial Contractors have training. So with all of that, taking all of it together, so looking at your 5-year plan, you're going to be the same. You're going to have the same business unless you change who you're hanging out with and what you're reading. So we gave you a lot of resources. Remember that the contracting certifications are like a ladder, rungs on a ladder to help you climb over that wall into government contracting so that you can win more. So utilize the people. Remember, in government contracting, you are selling to people. It's not really agencies, it's people. So change who you're hanging out with and change what you're reading. With that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to email out everybody the contact information for the different panelists. So if you have questions specifically, you can contact them directly. So with that, I want to thank you, and we'll talk to you all soon.